I am going to briefly describe the importance of a timeline in a classroom and some technology to implement that timeline. First of all, a timeline is just when actual events of pictures or descriptions that are lined up in history in chronological order. There can be a linear timeline or a vertical timeline, and I'm going to show you some examples of those in a second. Here's an example of a very basic horizontal timeline. There's some time frames, pictures, and brief descriptions, and it just shows the chronological order of the events on the big day. Here's John Adams' timeline, so a little bit more complicated. This timeline shows the key events in John Adams' life, yet again in chronological order. Here's a timeline of World War II. For this timeline, the student would also have to pick out the key events, but they could also see cause and effect relationships and see why things occurred as they did. Here's a timeline just of pictures, and as you can see, it is the evolution of the iPhone. I think this timeline it's very basic, but it's very helpful and visual. You can just easily see the progress in the iPhone, and so that just shows how timelines can help show progress. And here's a timeline and a graph at the same time, so a little bit more complicated, but I just wanted to show that you can see trends within timelines so the students can pick out certain patterns that are going on. And this is a very basic timeline, just to show that at any age, anyone can make a timeline. As you can see, this was done by a kindergartner probably, but they're still grasping the concept of time within this and progress and just their own aging personally and events in their life. Here's a timeline that would be more appropriate for possibly a high schooler or a middle schooler. This timeline, the student would have to yet again pick out the key events throughout history, so they'd have to be doing research to find these key events. And then they would also have to find pictures and descriptions and put it all in chronological order. And I think this timeline could be very helpful for studying, because once you make this timeline, I think you fully comprehend the subject. And now just some basic elements before you make a timeline. You need to think of the key events that are necessary for the timeline. You don't want to put every single event. You don't want to put events that are not key to the subject. And then you need to put it in the correct sequence or chronological order and decide what period is necessary. Is it years, hours, minutes? And then you need to number each of the segments. But you also need to make sure you divide the segments equally. You don't want two different segments to have 100 years and one have 25. And then finally label each section, and then you can put each section into categories, which I'm going to show you a very basic example. This kindergartner or elementary school student put each part of their timeline in categories. For instance, the green is toddler, purple preschool, and red school age, so on. And obviously you can make that much more complicated. And now here's a technology that can help you enhance the timeline skills. It is called myhistor.com. On this website, first of all, it's free, and you can collaborate with other people, tag other people, and add photos and make it private or public if you want people to edit it. In the beginning of the website, it's looks like a Google map, and you can click on anything, and then it will take you to the events in that time period. And this is an example on 2 screenshots of a very basic timeline that was on the website. And then below it is the Estates General, and that was when I clicked on part of a map. It was in France in a specific place, so not only is this timeline showing chronological events and key events, but it is also showing it geographically.